My friend and fellow YouTuber Pablo has a brilliant series on his channel called Streets of London. Go check it out if you haven't seen it before. I'll put a link below the video. Anyway, we often go out and we have coffee and we chat and we walk around in the centre of London. He goes up and he interviews people for his videos, and I take my massive Pentax 6x7 medium format camera and I go up to random strangers and I ask them if I can take their portrait. Really so funny. I'm taking some portraits of people. Would you mind if I take a photo?
Yeah, sure.
So just a quick side note on this, because I made a video a while ago about how to approach strangers for portraits, and I got a lot of comments that my bag was too big or that my camera was too big, and that's why I was getting rejections at first. But now I shoot these photos on this massive scary looking medium format film camera, which needs to be focused manually, and it doesn't even have an internal light meter, so I need to meter for my exposure with a handheld light meter. The whole process is much slower and more inconvenient than taking a shot with a small contemporary mirrorless camera. But it doesn't make any difference. In fact, the day I'm showing footage from here, I don't think I got a single rejection. As I said in my previous video on the subject, it's all about your attitude. Just be friendly and open and genuine, and if people seem hesitant, just be respectful and don't push it. Most people in the world are really nice, and more often than not, if you're walking around the streets, people are perfectly happy to be stopped and have their photograph taken. I think it was Mark Twain who said, 20 years from now, you'll be more disappointed by the things you didn't do than by the ones you did do. It really is an enjoyable thing to do, and also a useful exercise if you're interested in portrait photography. But recently I went out to do this, and I spent the whole day walking around with this huge camera, and I didn't take a single photo all day. I did not have the motivation or the creative drive. Every photo I saw just looked boring, every background I saw didn't look right, I couldn't see anyone I wanted to photograph. This is actually how bad it got. I found a little spot where the light was kind of really nice and it had a kind of colourful background, there was a bit of a market behind. I thought this would be a great spot for a portrait, and I thought I'll wait for someone to come along. And then Bill Nye just stepped in front of my camera. Bill Nye, the actor, not the American science guy, and he kind of looked at me and he looked down at my camera and he sort of looked at me like he was trying to place me, which was a bit weird. And then he walked off and started chatting to the people in the market, and he kind of looked back at me again. And I just had no motivation to ask him to take a photo. Although he may well have said no, because I did run into Ed Izzard the other day and I walked up and I said, "Can I take a photo of you?" And he said, "Not with that. But if you've got a mobile phone, I'll take a selfie with you," which I think is fair enough. I think he wanted to keep control of any sort of professional imagery of himself, or maybe he just didn't have time. I don't know. But anyway, that's how bad this creative rut had got, and it lasted for a few days. And I think this is something that happens to any of us who do anything creative. I think sometimes you just hit this wall and you stop being motivated and you stop being inspired. And I worked out what it was, and I worked out how to beat it. So I thought I'd do this quick vlog just to share with you my tips for how I got over this and how hopefully you can too. So I worked out that creative block happens for me when my conscious mind falls out of sync with my intuition. And what I mean by this is that when I'm creating something, my intuition, or my subconscious mind, is coming up with ideas, and my conscious mind is forming those ideas into something coherent. But when I hit a creative rut, it's like my subconscious mind's engine has suddenly stalled, and my conscious mind is left trying to run things on its own. But the problem with this is my conscious mind can only see what it can immediately access, and that both impacts my creativity and my motivation. It's like I'm in a room and the contents of the room represents everything I know, but the problem is it's all familiar and it's all stuff I've explored and I'm bored with. My subconscious mind, however, understands that there is a world outside that room, a world of unknown things. The reason I'm thinking, what's the point for any idea that I can think of, is because I'm being limited by my understanding of the world being only what I already know about it, without the comprehension that there are new and exciting things that I'm yet to discover. In a way, my brain is being arrogant, so my subconscious mind needs to be restarted. Luckily, I managed to get out of this thinking trap, and I formulated a list of 5 things that helped me that will hopefully help you keep your mind thinking creatively. So number 1, stop trying. Do something else for a bit, have a break. Your subconscious mind is much more likely to get up and running if you let your conscious mind just switch off for a bit. Number 2, go somewhere different. Allow yourself to get a different perspective on the world and your work. Because sometimes you can become very consumed in the world that immediately surrounds you. But just because that's all you can see doesn't mean that that's all there is. Every brilliant new idea was just the brainchild of someone who just thought of it. But you need perspective to understand its context and understand its position in the world. Number 3, spend time with people. It's the same thing again about getting a different perspective, but you can also learn from people. And also, sometimes you just need that permission from someone else to get something started. And it's all about just getting back into it, just getting back up and running, because that motivation will return. Number 4, stop worrying. When I say that motivation will return, I really mean it. Your creativity, your passion, your motivation, they'll all return. No one just runs out of ideas forever. We all go through this, and worrying about it will just prolong the problem. Trust your mind, because it's cleverer than you. So number 5, don't be afraid to let go of ideas that are holding you back. Sometimes you need to just push through with that project. Sometimes you need to work through those tough times when you lose that motivation, because it will return. But sometimes that idea just isn't right. Sometimes you are pushing for something that you know deep down just isn't right, and that is inhibiting your ability to be motivated and to be creative. Sometimes you've maybe paid out for a new camera and a new lens, and you desperately want to do a project that involves that new equipment, but maybe that new equipment just isn't right for your idea. Or maybe you've spent 3 weeks working on an idea and you've had another idea that was in just 10 minutes. It doesn't necessarily mean that that idea that you spent 3 weeks on is better than the idea you had in 10 minutes. Time spent on something is not always a measure of the quality of output. Sometimes you need to go against that perceived logic in your mind and drop the thing you can rationalise and quantify, and go with that gut feeling instead. I think all these points can be summed up into one mantra, and that's think less, do more. We call it overthinking, but I think it's more that we are constraining ourselves to rationalising everything through our own limited understanding of the world. There's more to learn out there than your mind can currently comprehend, so don't fall into the trap of thinking that you already understand it all.